Howdy, folks. Today we're diving into the world of fine art portraiture, the kind of work that stops you mid-scroll, if that's the way you do it. We're unpacking how our guest uses light, shadow, styling, and direction to create images that feel like art, and how you can bring those ideas into your own work. Right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, the show where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. We've spent literally hundreds of hours interviewing some of the most renowned photographers of our time, bringing you knowledge and expertise that you just won't find anywhere else. And as always, I'm your host, Kirsten Lutz, and if you're like me and you enjoy free podcast and YouTube content, you can support the show by buying us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/camerashake. No pressure, of course, but it really does help us create more exciting episodes for you. And hey, don't forget to join the Shake Squad, our newsletter crew over at camerashakepodcast.com, so you never miss out on upcoming guests. Behind the scenes stories and surprises we've got brewing, and there's going to be quite a few surprises coming your way very, very soon. But without further ado, let's give it up for today's guest, the internationally acclaimed photographer and Nikon Elinchrom ambassador, known for her painfully, emotionally rich portraits even, Therese Asplund. Therese, thank you so much for being on the show. Hang on, I pressed the wrong button there. Boom, there we are.
Oh, I thought we were joined by a third one.
Wrong button.
Yeah.
Oh well.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy. So and it's quite an introduction. I'll leave that for a rainy day.
Perfect. Therese, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We met for the first time a little while ago at the Click Live Expo in Milton Keynes in the UK. You're based in Sweden.
Yes.
Now, I mean, I thought your performance at the Click Expo was super impressive because you basically cleaned up all the awards, pretty much all the awards there.
Not all really, but yeah, it was a bunch, and it was surreal, really. It was I didn't expect that at all, but I'm really, really happy that they liked my images, of course, and yeah, it was also was a very good day. I joined the live judging, which I think is always such a pleasure. I mean, you learn so much from the critique you get on your own images, but also the critique you listen to for other images. So it was a nice couple of days in Milton Keynes. It was.
Yeah, Milton Keynes. I actually used to live in Milton Keynes, for about 14 years. It
was a kind of a special city in a way. It was a lot of roundabouts.
Yes, it's the highest concentration of roundabouts in any UK town.
Yeah.
So the thing about Milton Keynes is, people have a love-hate relationship with Milton Keynes. And this is just, slight explainer for all of our international audience. So Milton Keynes is a city about 45 miles north of London. And it was built, it's like one of these fake cities in a way. It was built specifically for the motor car. So it's, unlike your usual British cities and towns, it's based on a grid system. The roads don't really have names. They have numbers like V5 for vertical and H5 for horizontal and so on. So it's one of these designed cities. And that's why most people in the UK look down upon Milton Keynes, almost like as though it's not, as though it doesn't deserve to be called a city almost, because a lot of cities in the UK obviously have, thousands of years of history.
Yeah.
And Milton Keynes really doesn't. It's very new. But, having lived there for nearly 14 years, I did grow to like it. Actually, I did grow to love it. There's a lot of green. It's, everything's quite spaced out, which I like. So, they can have their...
Yeah. It was a nice city.
Yeah.
Nothing to complain about.
It's kind of cool. People can have their oldie worldy things, that's cool. But, all these cities are the same, in my view.
Yeah.
For that, somebody's going to leave a comment about this. Anyway, Now, anyway, Click Life Expo. It was a really nice photo show out there. Really loved it. It was cool. I tell you why it was cool. It was kind of it wasn't too massively huge, and it felt a lot more personal than some of the big shows, I would say.
Yeah, I like that too. Really. It was a nice, I mean, I did a talk and it was a nice audience. You could like connect with everyone. It wasn't that big. And yeah, everything was very personal. And you had the afternoon tea and it was, yeah, I liked it a lot. I did.
Yeah. Now we're gonna deep dive into your portrait photography in a second, but since we're talking about Click Expo and the fact that you literally like cleaned up all the awards there, what does it take to create a winning picture at a competition like that?
Well, I would say since I'm a lot of the times on the other side, on the jury side, I can only speak for what I'm looking for when uh, what I want to find in an image that I would like to score high. And it's, I mean, first of all, I like the image to like surprise me and make me feel something. So if it's something that you haven't seen before, or if it's something you have seen before, but it's done in a completely different way, or if it's like a message that strikes you really hard. But then, of course, all the technical things needs to be there. I'm the light geek that I am. I'm always looking for the good light, you know. And I mean skin tone when it comes to portraiture and yeah, so all the technical stuff also for it to score really high also needs to be perfect. But yeah, that I think that's pretty much sums it up.
What can people do to improve their portraiture? What do you think is like for because this is the thing. In my experience, there's two types of photographers, and I'm completely generalizing, by the way. It's like
Yeah,
a very broad statement. But in principle, there's two types of photographers: those who shoot people and those who don't. Some people,
yeah,
some photographers love shooting other humans, and other people just feel, I don't know, uncomfortable maybe, or um, it's sometimes when I run workshops, I find that for a lot of people, especially if they haven't shot portraiture before, it takes them a while to kind of get over that thing of like working with a model maybe and
yeah.
communicating and things like that. But what would you say is the sort of the number one thing that people should do to practice their portraiture or or to get better at it?
Well, I think for the first and I think the most important thing is that you need to be like comfortable working with other people, because I mean portraiture will always be a teamwork in some way. If you don't have a good connection with your model or good communication, the images are not going to be terrific. But then I I always come back to the lighting as well, because I do like mentor programs and give critiques and stuff like that. And it's so often that someone comes to me and say that, I want to learn editing. I want a mentorship, like do 3 or 6 sessions, and I want it to be on editing. And then they send me the images, and I'm like, you know, to you haven't made it very easy for yourself to edit these images. So it's a lot of the time it's a lot easier to just be more careful with your light, and then you have a raw that is really easy to edit than to like don't really care too much about the lighting situation, and then you have to like rescue it in post. So so lighting is always also an important thing, I think. So so the connection and the lighting.
Um, what first sparked your love for portraiture or for portrait photography? Um, so how did you find your way into portrait photography specifically?
I would say that I'm born into it. I don't know, but I mean, I got my first camera when I was 5 years old. I got my grandma's old camera when she bought a new one, and from the beginning, I almost always almost only shot like my friends and pets and things that lived basically. And I have images of my younger brother when they are really young, when I have like posed them and styled them and stuff like that. So I think from the beginning it's been people for me. And even though I have had like periods when I was thinking that maybe I'm also a nature photographer or a landscape photographer. So, because when I was like 15, 16, around that, I joined the camera club. And in the camera club in my town, there are a lot of amazing landscape photographers. So, of course, I wanted to give that a go. But I always found myself when I came to this beautiful location, I kind of did all the settings and then I was like, oh my God, what if it was someone standing there? If
I was
I
thinking
wanted to
exactly the same thing.
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's when you know that you are a portrait photographer by heart is when you, if it's not a human or something living in the image, you miss it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, because I have exactly the same experience. It's exactly the same for me.
yeah,
You know, I and it's exactly the same actually. In my local camera club, there's some amazing landscape photographers, and I really have huge respect for for landscape photography. I think it's much more difficult than people think. It does require
it's,
so much devotion. Getting yourself in the right place at the right time, being able to read light and things. And understanding the environment and everything is
yeah.
phenomenal. But I always, when I see an incredible scene, I always think like, where's the person in there? There should be a person in there, or at least a dog. Anything.
Yeah, anything. And you know what? The second thing about landscape photography and probably also wildlife, I wouldn't know, but it's the fact that you have to go up so early in the morning. I mean, oh my God, they went up at like 3 a.m. to be in a tent somewhere and wait for the dawn. And I'm
Yeah,
like, not gonna happen."
yeah, exactly. I used to say when I first started photography, I started photographing bands and live shows, and it was just because I used to be a musician, and so I just
Yeah,
I got off stage and I started photographing my friends essentially. Um, and I always used to say exactly the same thing. I have no problem staying up late, until 1 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock at night or whatever at a gig or at a show, no problem. But for me to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and to sit in a field and look at a tree or something like that and wait for the sun to come, that's just not never going to happen.
wait for a fox.
Yeah, wait for a
No.
fox that might not show up. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's huge admiration for the people who are into that and who have the patience to wait it out and to get the perfect wildlife or landscape
yeah.
image.
I really admire people who are that understanding of the environment.
Yeah.
Being able to read the weather and the clouds and light and all that kind of stuff. It's unbelievable. It's very, very hard. I worked with Dave Williams, and he's I would say probably the world's leading expert on the Northern Lights, or Northern Lights photography. Let's say he
Yeah.
literally wrote the book on it.
Wow.
Um, and so I had the opportunity to work with him on some workshops up in the Lofoten Islands. And it was amazing to see him work. It was amazing to see how many data points he would track. Um, and it was really amazing to see how he would be able to completely predict, or there's a hole in the sky in the clouds in 45 minutes, um, 13 miles from here. And we got to be on this side of the mountain, and we're going to be looking this way, and it's going to happen. And every time it just
It's
happens.
science. It's really science. Yeah.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Your style is very visually catching, I would say. It's
Mm.
your portraits have a sort of a painterly fine art feel. Um, how did that aesthetic develop to start with?
Well, I actually I don't really know because I always had the feeling that I don't have a specific style, and that I am a little bit all over the place, and I've had like an anxiety about that, because my Instagram flow, it will never be cohesive. So so when people keep telling me that, we could see right away that this was a Therese image, I obviously I do understand that I have something that is significant for how I edit or how I set my lights and stuff like that. But since I do so much things, I don't necessarily think that it's something that I've taken into consideration. I just do what I feel is most beautiful, and obviously a lot has to do with lighting. Uh, but then also, I mean, when it comes to editing adding your style to the images, the post is also, I think, really important. Um, but it's not something that I've actively taken a choice on. Really, it's grown to be what it is, and it's just because I do what I like and what I think is beautiful.
Is it a thing where often we're influenced by our idols. In music, it's a very, very typical thing. As a guitar player like myself, you grow up listening to particular guitarists that you like, whether that's Eddie Van Halen or you know, whoever it might be. Trying to think of some guitars, I can't think of anybody. BB King, right? So
Yeah.
whether you're to BB King or Wes Montgomery on the jazz side, or or Eddie Van Halen or Steve Vai, or whoever you're into, it will eventually shape the way that you play, because
Yeah.
you're what's the word? You're kind of exposed to that sound all the time. Is that a thing for you? Do you admire artists who, or other photographers who shoot in a similar style?
Yeah, I think I am influenced by a lot of other photographers. I mean, since we are, to start with, in Sweden, we have a really tight community within portrait photographers, and we help each other out a lot, and critique on each other's images and stuff like that. So obviously you pick up things that you like from that photographer or that photographer, and that obviously influences how you evolve your own style. And also I think that nowadays we are fed so much beautiful images, just being on Instagram. And I mean, you have picked the photographers that you like to follow for some reason, and now you kind of scroll through their images every day. So of course it's gonna spill over to new ideas, and I think that's also like a good way of learning and evolving, just to pick a little bit here and a little bit there, and then like bake your own cake pretty much. And
Yeah.
yeah. So but I wouldn't say that it's one specific photographer. If it is, I would say that it's the American portrait photographer. His name is George Holtz, who shot both fashion and, I mean, all the celebrities you can think of. But he's an amazing portrait photographer, and why I always come back to him, I think, is because he, like me, is a little bit all over the place. So he also doesn't have like a specific style, but he's really creative when it comes to lighting and I mean, using the locations in a very creative way. And whether it's flash or ambient or natural light, he mixes it up and use it beautifully and creative. So if I were to pick someone, I would say that it's George. And he's also like really nice, which I like. He's a kind man, and that is always very impressive to me. Kind beats cool every time, I think.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps. Aside from lighting, what role does emotion, for example, play in your portrait photography?
A lot, I would say, and that's why I always say that you need to have a really strong and good connection with your model. I mean, if it's a classical portrait, you kind of need to know the person a little bit, because you have to know what part of the personality you want to emphasize when picking the lighting and the posing and the expression. But also when it comes to fine art photography, you always have like a story in the back of your mind, whether it's a storytelling image with a clear message, or just a fine art portrait with like a persona. You still always have like a personality or a character in mind, and you need to get your model on board to get him or her to have the right expression for that character. So emotion is, I think, really important, and I mean, in some images it's 95% of what makes the image. So yeah.
It's actually a really good point. Because one of the things I used to struggle with in the very, very beginning, when I sort of originally moved away from shooting bands, and because when you shoot bands, you shoot people, and I really got hooked on that somehow.
Yeah.
The one thing I used to struggle with was, in the very beginning, was understanding, you know, how important what's the word, intentionality, if that makes sense, is versus spontaneity, for example. How does that play out in your process? What's the balance between being intentional, like knowing exactly what you want to achieve, knowing exactly what pose you're looking for, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
or what image you want to create, as opposed to being spontaneous and just letting the process flow and kind of see what we get in that shot.
Yeah. For me, I think it's always a little bit of both. I often go into, if you talk about the fine art session, like a work that I do, a personal project, something I do for me.
Yeah.
I always have like a really clear image of what it is I want to achieve. But then going into the session, testing these things out, I kind of almost always wander away from that, and more often find like something that I didn't think of from the beginning to be what works the best. So I think it's good to have like an intention, because it gets you started, and to have a plan for the shoot always, it makes you feel more secure, and you can like transform that to your model. You can show him or her, this is what we're going to do today, and this is what I like to achieve, and all of that, and maybe have like a mood board or something. But then it's also really important to be able to like play with it, and once you get going, it's also a lot easier. I mean, you always know that if you shoot with someone for the first time, it's really hard to get the best images the first 10 minutes, because then you don't really know each other, and it kind of takes a little bit to get into it, I think. So even though it's nice to have something planned, it's always also nice to just go with the flow and do whatever
I
comes
think
into your mind.
that's the thing with, when it comes to working with models. I always find that because it's two humans working together, it's the
Yeah.
connection between you and the model is so important. And just like with anybody, sometimes you connect really well with somebody and sometimes you don't, and it's just personalities clash, or you know um but the one thing, looking at your body of work, there's a number of pictures that really stand out for me, which are the ones, with the paint, um
Oh
laying it
yeah.
down. Yeah. How much
Yeah.
test shooting do you do for those? Like, how did you?
Oh, that one was crazy actually because it was such a last minute job. I got a call from a Swedish designer who were doing like a collaboration with the Nature Society here in Sweden. It was like a Save the Bees campaign, something.
Okay.
And she had like designed those glasses. It was like really colorful glasses with flowers and stuff on. And she was looking for marketing images for that campaign. And she was pretty much saying, you can do whatever you want. I send you the glasses and I leave it up to you. And I was like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want. Maybe I'll just pour paint over someone. Um, but then it was obviously the problem of having, the to find the right paint because you can't really pour like paint that you paint on a wall on someone. So it was a little figuring things out, I think, in the beginning. So what I actually did was I took like paint that you can like give to kids that they can paint with their fingers,
Yeah.
that stuff is pretty much edible. So with that, you can pour it on someone. It doesn't matter if you got it in your eye or something. So what I did was like I whisked it with water to get the best consistent, so that you can actually pour it because it's really more
It's kind of
hard
gloopy.
pour.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is.
gloopy.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, but it worked really well. But then I was like, so I reached out. I have an amazing model group with amateur models from my small town that I work with on projects like this and on workshops and stuff like that. So I was like reaching out to the group and I was like, I have a shoot today and I don't know how it's going to turn out. So if anyone's feeling adventurous, and then four of them turned up. And actually, it was very funny because one of the girls was like, it was her first time. She had just joined the group and it was the first time. So she had like curled her hair very nicely and had just on really beautiful clothes. And I was like, oh my God, it's so fun to have you here. Could you like tuck all your hair into this swim? What do you call it?
Oh, like a swim hat type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then bare shoulders. And she was like, what is this gonna be really? And all the others were like, it might feel funny, but just trust the process. Usually it's fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we're gonna pour paint over you, by the way. But it was not to go back to the question. It was no test shooting at all. I mean, you had we don't have a shower here in the studio, so you had like one go per model, and that was it. Because I mean, once you poured paint on someone, it's you can't do it again
Yeah, that's
because
pretty much it. Yeah.
there's too messy. Yeah. So, but it turned out really well, and yeah, I was happy with the results, and so was the designer. So, yeah.
What's the biggest misconception about creating fine art photography generally?
Oh, I don't know. I think mm, maybe that people think it's harder than it is. I mean, or not harder, but more complicated than it is. Because I mean, for the fine art portraits, I most often use like one light and one screen and a really small studio, so you can basically do it in your bedroom or in your kitchen. Um, and I think that maybe when people see the behind the scenes and they see that it's such a close area and also that it's not a very big setup, that they are like surprised of that. So it could be that, I don't know, or maybe, yeah, that, or maybe also that you can like do it with anyone. Uh, I also hear people saying that, I don't have professional models, so I can do that. But I never use professional models. I use uh, the girl who is in my find in my supermarket, who is in the cashier, or the girl who has uh, friends to my daughter who has this horse in the same stable, or whatever. Whenever I find someone that I think have an interesting personality, uh, and I like to shoot you. So yeah, so basically that it's easier, easier
It's
than
easier than you think.
yeah.
Great. Um, there's one thing I read on your website which we really liked a lot was you said when you master the shadows, the magic happens.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that when I create my lighting or do my setups, I find myself thinking more about where to put the shadows than where to put the highlights, really. Because when you think about it, I mean, the lighting when you work with portrait photography, it is the shadows who pretty much like uh, sculpts the face almost, who emphasizes someone's features. So it's really more important to be careful about where to put your shadows than to when to where to put your highlights, if it makes sense. But
Yeah. There's an interesting thing. I did some um, what would you call it? Like Hollywood style, classic Hollywood style portraiture a little while ago.
oh yeah,
Um, and the shadows were super important. It was like it's really trying to be super precise with um getting the because it was all black and white for starters. But
yeah,
I thought it was, for me, it was super important to really get the right level of shadow. So not only placement, but also the right intensity, because I
yeah.
didn't want to lose a lot of detail. And so I think, I came up with a whole bunch of different things, like firing lights into a wall and like, and brightening these shadows up. I think I ended up with like 5 lights around my one.
Oh yeah,
But it was really interesting to really just dial everything into, to just to that perfect point. Um,
yeah,
and the revelation for me actually was that because I put the whole process into black and white, so everything was black and white. The viewfinder in my
yeah.
camera was black and white. When I was tethering it into Lightroom, it immediately put a black and white preset on. So at no stage in the process did I see the color version of that image.
Oh
And
yeah,
and what that really did was it really helped me to dial in, especially those shadows, and
yeah,
the highlights to a degree as well,
yeah.
because I could see it immediately in black and white, and there was no, you know, because some people like to shoot differently. Some people like to shoot in color, and then they convert it afterwards and do it in post, and that's legitimately fine, whatever.
Yeah.
I just found it taught me a lot about lighting,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
doing it on set, basically.
Yeah, and that's why I always, even though I want my portrait to be a color one, I always make it a black and white, because that's when you see if your light is really even, or if it's something that's disturbing, because it's so much easier to see when it's black and white than it is when it's in color. So I think that's a really good way of, if you want to do a session where you want to be 100% like into the lighting setup, uh, doing it black and white is yeah, it's really smart.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. I didn't actually before that. I didn't even know that I could set my viewfinder, the EVF in my camera, to black and white. I found that out, and I remember talking to one of our former guests, Mark Vieira, about the the golden era of Hollywood photography. And I sort of thought, I wonder if I can recreate that um, in with modern equipment, and I wonder if I can dial in that that amount of detail. So it's a super interesting thing. I mean, I always love doing stuff like that, especially things that I'm not necessarily that used to, because it just expands your own ability as a photographer. I always find it super interesting. What's your approach when you start shaping light for a portrait? What's your starting point, and how do you go? What's your process basically?
Yeah, I kind of always think of lighting for portrait photography. I always wanted to do like two things mainly, and the one thing is that I wanted to direct the eye of the viewer. So I want pretty much, I use the light to tell the viewer what is important in the image. But then I also, of course, want to set a light that brings out the best in the model, to set the shadows where I where it looks most beautiful, basically. So I think that's the two things that I think of the most.
Do you do you visualize the lighting beforehand, or do you sort of discover during the shoot? The reason I'm asking is because I recently came across a software called Satellite, which
Yeah, yeah.
I really like. I mean, I was like, this is awesome. Do you use that as a sort of a previs almost, or do you just
I actually haven't used it, but I had one of my mentor students came across it and showed me, and I think especially for teaching, it's perfect, because it's so easy to play around and to see, because lighting is very much, you don't have to do much. It's basically a matter of turning your softbox like 5 centimeters to this side of 5 centimeters to that, and it makes the whole difference, really. So to have a software where you can like play around and see how that really works, I think is really smart. So yeah.
I love it from a learning perspective as well, because you can experiment around. You go like, oh, this is what happens when I do this. Amazing.
Yeah.
And then the next time you had a shoot, I always think like these are like different what would you call it in like a video game, like different types of ammunition or something. You can just go,
Yeah.
huh, in this scenario, I need the, I don't know, um shotgun. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or the snoot. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so I really love that. I haven't spent that much time in it, but from what I've seen so far, it's actually very, very cool.
Yeah, I want to get it for sure, because I think, it's also, you can play around and you can test things before, and you don't even have to be in the studio. You can do it by
Yes,
yourself, computer, which is
exactly.
smart and convenient. Yeah.
And instead of, when you combine that with like a mood board, for example,
Yeah.
this can be extremely powerful. Especially now that we can use things like Pinterest or something to put a mood board together, but also at the same time we can use AI to put a mood board together, which
Yeah.
you know I've spoken to somebody else uh, about that recently, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but being able to then dial in this could, I don't know, it's something worth considering. I'll
Yeah.
definitely try it. Do you have like a favorite lighting setup, or how do you go with it?
I am a sucker for the feathered softbox.
Right.
I like this soft classic portrait light, really.
Yeah.
So I think that's my go-to. And it needs to be like really feathered,
Yeah.
so that it's almost like completely even. Because I really like when you have that, even on the light side of the face, that you have this shadow, so you get like a sculpting shadow all around the face. And also, if I do it feathered, I also get a really nice like nose shadow, so that I get shadows on both sides of the nose, which is also like really good if you want to emphasize someone's features. So yeah, I would say that definitely is my go-to. But then obviously for specific things, when you work with those really like symmetric posing and stylings, the clamshell light is also a favorite. So yeah, it depends, but I always come back to the feathered rotatic softbox.
Okay. Do you prefer a sort of rectangular softbox or an octobox type thing?
an octobox. Uh, but I have no problem with the rectangular ones either. I think it works almost as well. But I think it since I always work with my light really close to the model, it's also really convenient with the round ones because they don't take up that much space. And also I like the catch light to be round instead of square.
Yeah.
So it's those small things, but
Yeah. It's the tiny little details that matter. I went from round um catch lights. At one point I went back to rectangular ones, and now I'm back to round ones. Just because I kind of thought, like, because the thing about rectangular lights is it indicates window lights to a degree, and
yeah,
also Mickey Mouse, you know.
yeah,
So I kind of thought, like, oh well, if Mickey can do it, then you know,
yeah, probably.
what are these things? But yeah, you're right. It's really about those little details. For like one of your fine art process, how big a octobox do you normally use for that?
Um, in my studio, the one I use the most is 120. But I would say that if I were to choose like only to use one for the rest of my life, I would go with something smaller. I have the 70 also, like always hanging, so I can like switch between the two. So the 70 I think is more versatile because then you can also get like a really uh, like almost a hard light if you use it from afar. The big one is like always gonna be soft,
Yeah.
which is good. And it's I use it mostly here, and I got it because I do for my clients. I shoot a lot of kids and families, and for that it's perfect because the kids can move around a little bit, and I can still get a pretty good light. So
Mm.
so that's really it's convenient. It's easy to work with. But the 70, I think it's more creative.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good size. I just recently got hold of a Profoto Click softbox, which is really small. I mean, what is that, 50 maybe, something like that. It's super small. Um, and I sort of gotten to like it for headshots. Very
Yeah.
close up headshots. It works perfectly fine. Um,
Yeah,
but
I have this Ellenchrome snap looks for when I'm on location because
yeah,
it's so easy to fold and unfold,
yeah,
and that's 60. So it's pretty similar. But that one is also, I mean, that one I can use almost as a beauty dish.
yes.
So that's also convenient.
There's a Godox octobox that I got hold of not too long ago, which is actually, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's a 60, but it basically has, you can take the baffle out, and it has an insert that will turn it into a beauty dish, basically.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
I've seen that. Yeah,
and it works really well. I have to say, I like it a lot. It's very cool.
yeah,
It just gives you a
it's
lot of
good with
flexibility.
stuff gear. It's fun, isn't it?
I know it is. Yeah, I know. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm always torn between big modifiers because I like big modifiers as well. I have like a 6 foot softbox, octobox, and I love that thing. It's very cool.
yeah,
But my shooting space is very small, so um, because that's a traditional softbox and not like a shoot, like an umbrella type of thing, this thing, it takes up a lot of space. It's
yeah. It
pretty
does.
good.
Yeah.
Um, well, actually, talking about lighting, how do you decide, like on a shoot, for instance, how do you decide between natural light, um, or studio light? Is the particular sort of thought process you go to, or do you always use
Yeah.
studio light?
I almost always use my flashes. I find it to be, um, I mean, the situation to get a perfect light with natural light. You need to like have the all the moons in a straight line, pretty much.
Yeah,
Because you need to be, the weather needs to be good, the background needs to be in the right direction, you need to have like open sky, and it's a lot of things that needs to be right for the natural light to be perfect. So and even if I use like, I don't know, 90% not natural light on a shoot, I almost always uh, use like a poof of light just in the face, just to have that natural skin tone, because it's so time consuming. If you have like a, I don't know, red wall or uh, green lawn or a bush or whatever things that are in color in the location that has had light bounce off of it, you will see it in the skin tone. And to just get that small little poof of light in the face to kill all the color pollution, what do you call it?
Yeah.
I think it's really convenient, and it saves me so much time in post. And I do a workshop on like flash, to mix flash and natural light, and when I begin that workshop, I present like 25 images to the group, and I say that, you know what, divide these into which images do you think is flash and which do you think is just natural light. And it basically ends up like the same amount in both of the piles, but really it is flash all the way through. So I think if you learn how to use flash and to make it look like natural light, it saves you so much time.
Yeah. Now you teach workshops. You mentioned it. What's the one lighting mistake that you see people make all the time?
I think uh, basically not just to take enough time to do it like thoroughly. Because I understand why. I mean, it's a lot of things to think about. You have a model and you have the location maybe, and you need to see to it that the hair looks nice and the clothes, and you need to keep the communication going, and it's a lot of things. I understand that, but I think that that's when you kind of you put up your light, and a little bit, you want it like 45 degrees, and that's it. And maybe you don't take that extra 1.5 minute to see if maybe it should be a little bit higher, or maybe you should like feather it a little bit more, or maybe you should like do these small adjustments that gives you like the the best possible raw file. uh, so maybe rushing it is the biggest mistake, I think.
Yeah. If you if you could give one tip to a beginner, let's say if somebody mastered just one lighting setup,
Yeah.
what lighting setup do you think should that be?
Comes back to my feathered classic lighting again then.
Yeah.
I think that's so versatile. I think you can use it for like business portraits, for kids, for classical portraits, for fine art portraits, fashion, for yeah, pretty much everything. So and also it's kind of, you don't need a lot of stuff. You need like one light, one softbox, and a screen. And then you can like use the feather light to control the highlights, and then you use the screen to control the shadows on the other side, which makes it also like not that many things to keep track of. So it's if you want to master one thing that you can really use for a lot of things, I would say it's that. And I always say to my students that, I mean, go with one light and do that until you master it to perfection, and then you can like keep going from there.
That's a super important tip, really. It's the one light thing. So many people I see, get into the what do they call it, gear acquisition syndrome, where you buy like you want to buy a studio job, you're not going to buy one but three, and and then you're like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
that is right.
yeah. I mean, I always say this. I used to run my headshot business with one speed light for a long time, 4 years or something, And the thing was, so it was just a speed light. It wasn't even, it wasn't even a studio strobe or anything. And I had, the only other thing I did was I had a pop up soft box, one of these square things that just pop up.
Yeah.
Um, and I got some black and white poster board. The kind of thing you use for arts and crafts and things like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's like foamy, kind of foamy poster board stuff. Or foam board, I think is actually what it's called.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I just glued two sheets together, black on one side, white on the other, and
yeah,
then that just became my fill, my negative fill or my positive fill, depending on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah, and I did it for years and years and years. I agree, you learn so much doing that. And then when, when you think like, oh, but now I could use another light, let's say in the background or something, to create some more interest or whatever, it's much easier to handle that because I think it's because in your head you can make that clear separation between the different lights. It's so easy for that all to get confused in one big mashup of light, and you don't know what's hitting what, and that's when things become complicated in people's minds usually.
Yeah, yeah, I mean the sad thing is that a lot of people do that and think it's too complicated, and then they stop doing it. So, uh, but what they really should do is like strip it down and start over and see that it's really quite easy.
Yeah, I like to take risks sometimes. And one of the things I got into a little while ago is film photography, right? I'm not,
Oh yeah,
I don't have that much experience with it, but I like it. I sort of grew up with it in my family, but I never really, when I got into photography, it was digital. Um, but I just recently got hold of a few old film cameras, and now I'm planning to connect them to my flashes, and create, because for me, the risk is like, well, I can't see what's on the screen. I'm going to have to basically guess.
yeah, like we did.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all. Yeah,
Yeah. But I think it's a fun thing. This is the thing I
yeah,
think I like the most about photography is there's always a challenge.
yeah.
That you never run out of challenges ever,
No,
whatever it is. Um, but one of the things that really struck me with your work is also the way that you handle, styling, hair, makeup, things like that. How do you go about it? Do you do that yourself? Do you have a makeup artist? What does that normally look like on a regular shoot?
yeah, I always do everything myself. So hair, makeup, a lot of the outfits, and crazy headpieces and stuff like that. And it's something that I enjoy a lot. I mean, I growing up, I was always the girl who drank all the wine in the party in the bathroom, doing it every other girl's makeup and her hairs and stuff like that. So so I've always done that. And starting out doing like styled portraits, I try to work with a stylist and a makeup artist. But what I found, first of all, it was like really tricky because then I had to it need to fit my schedule, and then the clients, and then I had to see if they were available. So it was like tricky to just to get the practical things in order. But then what I actually found was most valuable in doing it myself was that if I have a client come in for a styled session and I do the hair and makeup myself, then we have these like extra 45 minutes where we talk about the weather and whether or not they have kids, and the normal stuff. And
Yep.
when the hair and makeup is done, we know each other pretty well. So going into the studio and start shooting is so effortless, because then I've always I already been like this close, fixing makeup and hair. So the what do you call it? The private distance, private swear, or what do you say?
Yeah.
The personal space, the personal space. That's all. That's already been broken. So it's really we already feel like secure and comfortable with each other, which I think made the sessions smoother, and ultimately I got more good images.
Yeah, that's very important. It's very clever, actually. It's a really great. It's actually, yeah, it's great. I mean, it makes perfect sense because you're building up a rapport and a connection with your
Yeah,
model. And even if I think if it's somebody you've never shown up with, then that's great because you can start making that connection. But even if it's somebody you've worked with before, it's just a matter. That's a really good opportunity to just kind of level everything out and make sure we're all, we can sort of just let the day-to-day stuff out the door and and connect that
yeah,
and get ready for the shoot. It's actually very clever. Um,
yeah.
w-
And then
s-
I have to say that I'm not an expert in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do makeup well enough to make it look good on camera, and I can do hair to make it good enough so that I can make it better with a little bit of liquify. And it almost never looks good in the back, but
Yeah.
I can do it good enough for what I want to achieve. So
Yeah. What's it, what is the thing with makeup to make it look good on camera? Like, what's the difference between, let's say, everyday makeup and makeup that looks good on camera?
I would say that it's basically when you do like everyday makeup, what you actually do with like contouring and highlights and blush and stuff like that, it's actually to put a light setup on, which you don't really need to do if you're shooting in a studio and you have your light set. So I would go easier on the contour and maybe just add some blush because I want the color and I want like the fresh pink or whatever. Um, and also the highlights, I don't need to add that because that's what I do with my light.
Mm.
And then also um, I kind of get the feeling that the camera sometimes eats makeup because you need to like amp it up a little bit. Always need to have like a little bit more than you usually do when you do your day-to-day makeup.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's pretty similar to just normal makeup.
What's the secret behind making a portrait look like it's a painting? Because there's a very specific look to it. Um,
Yeah.
how do you achieve that?
I would say that it's probably two things. I for the painterly pieces that I do, they are pretty like high in contrast. I work a lot dodge and burn with bringing out the highlights that I've already set in my lighting, and also like work with shadows that are like barely coverage in. So I think that contrast makes it painterly, but also to go a little bit lower on the saturation in post. If you do that, I mean, take it down like a 6, 7, 8 points, you immediately get more of that like painterly feel to it.
Cool.
And then I also add like a little bit of grain because I think that also adds to it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I don't really, I'm not really into super clean images. Generally, I always like to have a little bit of grain in there.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, me too.
there's something. There's actually interesting things. One of the things I learned during the pandemic, in fact, when I was editing a lot of cars or images of cars, because, well, mainly because over here in the UK we had very, very strict lockdowns and you couldn't meet other people, and and just to keep myself entertained, a friend of mine and I, we went out to shoot cars.
Oh, yeah.
I would do like some light painting thing. I don't know. We just use some techniques that we hadn't used before, and it was just a great way of learning things.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of the time, when you do things like, I don't know, license plate replacements, things like that, or when you take out, you place bits on I don't know, on a door, the hood, or whatever. Um, it never looks good until you add grain. It
No.
never looks like it binds in really. It never looks realistic until you actually add that grain, and then very quickly it's like, whoa, this blends in really well now. And
I totally agree.
it's because these images are never 100% clean by default. That's
No.
the thing. Um,
Yeah.
how much of your final images are sort of crafted in camera versus in post production, would you say?
Um, I always try to get as close as I can in camera, mostly because I'm not that good an editor, really. So I would say that a lot of the images are. I mean, of course, there is always like small adjustments. I mean, you fixing the fabric and to get a nice shape and like I said, I like to work with the shadows and highlights a lot, but basically it's I I'm not very good at composites and things like that. So it's pretty much like it looked in camera.
Now, you've I remember reading your website. You mentioned your crazy ideas. What's Can you share a recent crazy idea and tell us why that worked or how it worked?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to the crazy ideas, it's often has to do with styling. I find like a material that is kind of unconventional to use for styling at all. Like I did a workshop at last year's or this year actually. It's November. Yeah, this year's convention, the Society's convention in London. I did a live shoot for Ellen Chrome, and I was supposed to do like a styling where I had like backdrop paper and then made all the clothes and the headpiece and everything from the same backdrop paper. But then, like the day before, they couldn't get a hold of the backdrop paper that I was supposed to use. So I was like, okay, I have to come up with something. And then I made like a whole outfit of black garbage bags. That was actually one of the one who won the Click Backdrop award in Milton Keynes. That was that shoot actually.
Yeah.
So I think it's mostly that, or when I pour the paint over someone, or make an whole outfit out of balloons or packing material, or I don't know. I found this like foam thing that you put underneath when you do flooring.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so fun to work with. It's really
It's,
light, and it catches the light really beautifully, and you can make like dresses and big things because it doesn't weigh anything. So
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it's a lot of that.
I mean, with ideas like that, and with the paint pour thing that we talked about earlier, I'm guessing that there must be occasions when that just completely fails. What's one of your biggest fails in that respect?
um I kind of I can't remember like one thing where it completely failed, because I mean, as we talked about before, I mean, even if the initial idea doesn't work out, I kind of always find a way to I don't give up, I would say, until I get something. So I don't know if I've had any session that hasn't like led to one single image really. Because if something really doesn't look as good as I think it would, I just try something new and something different, and until it works.
How do you push yourself creatively when you feel stuck? Because that often happens. To
Yeah.
people, they kind of there's a point where they get stuck. One of my techniques is, especially with headshots. Sometimes when I need when I just need to take a beat and actually think about what we're going to do next. My sort of go-to strategy is I always start fiddling with the light. So basically, I'll go to the light and I'll just move it around a little bit, and that gives me, like, if it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds to just get my thoughts back in order, and then I know, how to move on to the next thing. How do you push yourself creatively in that respect?
Oh, you mean in the middle of a session, or if I
Yep.
get like a creative block?
Oh, both actually. Yeah, both. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
both in the middle of a session and then just generally when you're thinking I need to do something else.
Mm, if it's in the middle of a session, I don't know if that's happened. I think I it's more for me. It's more the other way, that I kind of come up with more and more things that I want to try, because I
Yeah.
mean, oh, this look good. Maybe if I do this, and maybe if I take a light and fill in here, or maybe if I use this, and then the session that was supposed to be like 1 hour, all of a sudden is 2 hours. So that's what my models always say. Like if you say that it's gonna be 2 hours tops, we always think it's gonna be 3 hours. So once I'm there, I think it's no problem. But then, of course, I get to points where I'm like, I don't have that many good ideas, and I want to book a session, and I want to do something, and I don't have any ideas. But then I actually have a folder on my phone. So whenever I come across something that gives me inspiration, whether it's like a screenshot of something or a location that I snap a photo of, or if it's a film or a book or whatever, I just keep it in that folder. And then if for some reason I don't have any idea, I can always dive into that. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, this one, I could do something with that, or these three or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really
So
good
I
strategy.
think that's my strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I do exactly the same thing. I have I use a thing called Notion, which basically allows you to like organize things like that in lots of different ways. But that's exactly the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
so for I know a lot of people who like to compete or take part in competitions because it pushes them on to do stuff. Um, how has that sort of shaped your art? Do you use competitions as almost like as a motivator, or is entering something into a competition sort of almost like an afterthought?
No, I think it's definitely something that keeps me going. And I mean, since I've always done personal projects, uh, I mean, from when I started out professionally 20 years ago, I've always given myself time to do personal projects. And competitions have always been like uh, giving the personal projects a meaning in a way, because then I can always like use them for competitions. And always also I found that if I'm thinking competition, even with my clients, if I like think competition in the back of my mind, I always like push myself a little bit harder. I maybe I go that extra mile to get the image that I want. So for me, it's been really a good way to learn and to push myself to try new things, because that's all also I mean, we talked about what makes a good competition image, and to be up there in the top, you need to do things that the judges haven't seen before, uh, which basically means that you have to think in like new directions and try new things. And from that, I have learned so much. And basically, that has made me a better photographer for my clients also. So,
What advice would you give to photographers who are thinking about entering into competitions?
um, first of all, to do it for you. Uh, I mean, to have like the right mindset when you go into a competition, I think is crucial. Because if you go into a competition to just get cheered on, and you don't, it might end up be a not so nice experience. But if you truly go into a competition to learn and um, to get that critique that you can actually use to make your images better and to make you a better photographer. It's so valuable and a really fun way of getting better. So having the right mindset, I think, is crucial.
Now you've won, awards longer than my arm. Basically, the list of awards on your website is phenomenal. Um, is there a particular winning image that you're particularly proud of?
Um, Yeah, I think maybe it's two that comes to mind. Maybe the one I entered the society's print competition for the first time 2 years ago, and I it's been had been a kind of a couple of rough years here with the economy not being very good, and so I decided not to go to London for the finals, but I still wanted to send prints because I love print competitions. I love printing so much, so that's what I fancied about that competition. and I sent in an image that I hadn't tried before in any other competition. So and it was a new competition, and I mean the competition is fierce. I mean it's photographers from all over the world, so I had like no expectations whatsoever. And then my friend called me up and she said, "Baby, you need to get your ass on a plane and come to London, because then one of the images that I had sent in had scored 100 points from 5 judges, which was like a dream come true. It's something that you never expect to happen, like ever. So that was really big, and it was also an image that I felt really strong for myself, because it was the portrait is of a girl who has like yarn, like a headpiece of yarn, and she's knitting. And then she has like a yarn that is like red and it's the shape of a heart with like a, what do you call it? Is it knits? What do you call it? These things, the sticks.
Oh, knitting needles. Yeah.
Oh, knitting needles. So it's a knitting needle like right through the heart. And I call it knitting to heal a broken heart. And the inspiration for that came from I was listening to a podcast about a group of women who used like arts and crafts, as recovering from different kinds of mental health issues. So for the judges to like see my vision and also to like read into that image stories that I hadn't think about, was like a really big moment for me, I would say. So that's number one. And the other one was last year I won the Luminance Award at Icons in Las Vegas, which is basically Profoto who sponsors a prize where they pick one image, no matter the category, where they feel that you have used light in the best possible way, which of course for a light geek like me is like the biggest thing you can ever win. So I would say these two.
Are you talking about light? You're affiliated, and not only with Nikon but also with Elinchrom. Have those partnerships influenced your work, or how in what ways are allowed you to do things that you couldn't do before? How's it influenced?
I think most of all, it has created like possibilities for me to travel, to teach in different countries, and to meet other photographers and make a lot of new friends. And that I think has also always been the most important thing going into an ambassadorship or a partnership. Because I mean, being a photographer is sometimes a pretty lonely job, and I'm rather social, so I like to have people around. So that's what I like the best. And then, I mean, both Elinchrom and Nikon, they've never like told me what to do and what to shoot, but rather given me the freedom to do what I like, and just having like people who believe in you and like what you do, I think also gives you the courage and the maybe confidence to go like further and to push yourself and do things that you couldn't dream of daring to do. Basically. So of course it's been important to especially when it comes to like giving speeches and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things about the photography industry, by and large, is I've really found it to be an extremely sort of welcoming and friendly and warm kind of industry, really. If I compare it to the music industry, which is totally cutthroat, by the way, completely different thing. So but actually talking about equipment, what is the? And I'm asking this question because I already have the next question in my head.
Yeah.
What is the one piece of gear or the one piece of equipment that you would say has elevated your portrait photography the most?
Mm. Oh, that was a hard one. Um, I don't know. Um, I mean, you always think that when you get like a new body or a new lens or a new light shaper, that is the this is the best thing. But I don't know if it's been like one thing. Maybe, I mean, I started out, my first studio was like, I used to work, I was manager in camera store. And my first light setup, my first studio that I had in my basement was like really, really, really old lights. Um, which gave me like not the same amount of light in every shot and not even the same color, I would say.
Yeah,
So I mean, the biggest change that some equipment has ever given me, I think, was when Elinchrom replaced those lights for me, and all of a sudden I could like have light that I could. Uh, I didn't need to struggle. I know that these lights will give me the exact amount of light every time and the exact same color.
yeah.
So yeah, I have to say that then.
It's funny how people tend to forget about that a lot. I had a very similar experience actually with my first set. Well, actually, it was kind of my second set of lights, but my first set of proper, studio strobes. Um, and I bought a bunch of lights from a company called Interfit. And the reason why I bought them was because like I mentioned earlier, my shooting space is very small. And the form factor of those lights was like a cube, it was like one of the old alien bees.
Yep.
And because they weren't as long as a lot of other lights, I thought, well, this makes sense. It gives me just a few more inches. I can get them closer to the wall.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and they worked well for some time. They were battery powered lights. But I always had a problem with the trigger. Like the trigger
oh
was not super reliable, and it was basically on a Nikon. The Nikon trigger, you had to kind of wiggle it around a little bit so that you couldn't push it all the way into the hot shoe. You just had to kind of wiggle it out a little bit. And it's fine when you're, you know, doing a personal project or test shoot, but when you're
yeah,
working with a client, it can very quickly
yeah.
become really quite
It does.
tiresome.
Yeah,
Um, and And I remember originally when I switched to Godox, it was like, what is happening? Everything's reliable. Everything's, there's virtually a very, very few misfires, very few it was super
yeah.
reliable. And the consistency was really good. And recently I've been working with Pro Photo Gear, and I have to say, I have no idea what they're doing with these lights. I don't really understand what's different, but one of the things I have to say, they're on camera flash, right? Normally, if you were to put a speed light on top of a camera, you point it directly at your subject, you get probably the most horrible light you could possibly imagine, right? Now, sometimes I shoot boxing events, and when the fighters come into the arena, I have to use a
Yeah,
flash because there usually isn't enough light.
yeah,
With these, I'm very confused because even if I have that light on the camera and I point it straight at the athletes, they look good. And I really don't understand how that's even possible. But
isn't
such
it
a
like
huge
because it's round? I
it's
would think it's that.
yeah, it's
I
because
don't know.
it's
I haven't
round.
tried it. So.
It's because it's round, and because the diffuser on the front of it is
Yeah,
shaped very differently from whatever it
yeah.
is that it does, but it's an unbelievable
As long as
improvement.
it's working.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, and then I use some pro photo gear to do headshots predominantly, and I have to say, it's like you say, you know, the consistency is just incredible. It's just like adding chrome. It's just
like you need to have like you need to have gear that you can trust and that you feel comfortable with, and
yeah,
I think yeah. So whatever it is, it needs to be reliable and it needs to be easy to use.
yeah, and it's these little things, because I think in the beginning when people first start out, and they kind of think, well, why should I pay 600, 800 pounds on a studio's job? I can just get a speed light, do something very similar for a fraction of that money. You know, uh, I always come back.
I've never been able to use a speed light. I think it's too hard.
Well, speed lights. I
Very
mean, speedlights can work. They can work quite well, especially in smaller modifiers, like smaller softboxes and things. They can work practically just as good. I mean, some people say like, "Oh, you get more of a hot spot in the middle," and yeah, maybe that's true. But if by and large, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the
For
main
me, it's just that I'm too trigger happy.
yeah
So that
no
yeah, so they don't give me the same amount of light because they never get a chance to
yes.
charge.
So exactly right.
So
That's a thing. But I think the biggest issue that I had with speedlights, and bearing in mind, I said earlier I ran my headshot business for 4 years or something just with speedlights.
yeah, yeah,
But but one of the things was you go into especially if it was a volume shoot, like especially if you go into a company you're shooting
yeah,
14, 15 people or something. This in the back of your mind, it's always that like at some point I'm going to change those damn batteries. You know,
yeah,
at some point, and then it's like, oh yeah, but you can get an external battery and plug and you go, well, by the time I spend that money, I might as well just buy a strobe. You know,
yeah.
um,
That you can rely on. Yeah,
yeah, and so for the longest time, I always used to think like, yeah, but I just have to have some spare batteries with me, no problem, blah blah. It's when you change the strobes and you don't have that problem anymore. You at some point realize that I can now go into that shoot and I can be perfectly relaxed because I
yeah,
don't have to worry. It's one less worry, basically.
yeah.
That's
Mm,
that's the thing. Now
totally agree.
my follow up question actually links directly onto my last question. Do you
Yeah.
think that photographers nowadays rely too much on gear? Do you think that's the thing?
Mm, I don't know really. Uh, I mean that there will always be like those mostly guys, I think,
Yeah, quite
have
possibly.
like more gear. They spend more time figuring out what gear to buy than to actually learn how to use it. Uh, but in general, I don't think that's true for everyone. So I wouldn't say that it's like a big problem. And I mean, we are so different. I mean, one person who is, I mean, think that the gear is the fun part, really, and then you have me who hates. I mean, I love to switch to new camera body because I get new features, but I really don't because I like to have my buttons in the same place, and I need to. I love to have the feeling that I don't need to think, that I can just like uh, go ahead. So I think it's just a matter of us being different, and it's not one thing is not bad and the other is good, but it's because I mean sometimes I'm too uninterested in the technical stuff, so I don't know when a new solution has come out, or where you when you have like new features in Photoshop or a new software that helps you with that. I need to get from someone else because I'm so it's good to be super technical as well, and I think we need both types of photographers.
Cool. Now we're almost at the end. As always, I'm going to finish with a little quick fire segment. 6 questions, super quick.
Yep,
Natural light or studio light?
studio light.
Cool. One lens you cannot live without for portraits.
Nikon Z 2470 2.8.
Ooh, the new one?
Yeah, the
Oh,
new.
I just recently got that one. Oh my God. I literally got it like 2 weeks ago.
It was brand new when I did the Tokyo trip, so
Right.
I used it there for all the shoots in Tokyo, and it was so amazing.
It is, and well, okay. So I tell you what,
Quick questions, yeah, I know.
I know I have a love hate relationship with this lens. I'll tell you why. Because it's the most stunning lens I think I've ever owned. It's unbelievable, both for stills and video. I have to say, there's
Yeah,
something very interesting that happens in video, especially when you're switching focus from, let's say, something that's in the foreground to something that's in the
yeah,
background, right? So with my old 24-70, also a Nikon, but quite a really old lens, you know, sometimes you had a little bit of focus bleeding or whatever. But what would happen in video would be it would just zap to the next
oh,
object, right? With this one, however, in video, there's a cinematic, almost like a focus pull, and it just so cinematically moves from the foreground to the background. You just go, I didn't do anything.
yeah,
Amazing.
I don't film very much, but I mean, since this lens is made for film photography as well, that's why the internal zoom and everything. So I would, and all the filmmaking friends I have really, really love it. So I can imagine that it does good things.
But I tell you my hate relationship with it.
Okay, yeah.
So I shot my first boxing event with it only a few days ago, actually.
Yeah.
And the thing is, typically, I don't know, when I shoot an event like this, I probably come back with about, I would say, I don't know, 1,200 shots or something like that, right? On average.
Yeah.
Normally, you go through them and, there are some that are out of focus and some, whatever. And you cull quite a few of those. With this bloody lens, there were, I think there were 3 images that were out of focus. Everything else was tack sharp. You just go, oh,
how am I gonna shoot? Yeah,
yeah. It's like, okay, so that's gonna make this makes my work photo. Huh? So it's really unbelievable. It's an incredible lens. Nikon, if you're listening, very well done. Okay, cool. Your favorite portrait that you've ever created? Yes or no? Is it personal work?
No.
Okay. Do you mind me
It's
asking?
not personal work. Yeah, because I think it's actually client work from last year, of a couple that come to the studio because they had been married for 65 years, I think.
Yeah, well.
Well, and I shot a portrait of them that I think is the one that lies closest to my heart. It's an amazing image, yeah. So no.
Because often it is the story behind the portrait that's the thing.
Yeah, and the people.
Yeah,
always the people. Yeah.
This is I've had a few guests on the show who are war photographers, and of course with those images, they're always, or very often, they're very touching stories that are connected with those images. And for me, that's always the thing. When I look at images like that, I think, I mean, this is an image, but once you learn the story behind it, it's unbelievably powerful. All right, last question. No, second to last question. Sorry. One lighting modifier every photographer should use.
An Octabox 70.
Cool. What's the biggest portrait photography myth you wish would disappear?
That it's too complicated.
Perfect. Therese, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being the guest on the Camera Shake podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this episode of Camera Shake. A massive thank you to Therese Asplund for sharing her insights, techniques, and creative philosophy, and for giving us such a powerful look into the world of fine art portraiture. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app, no matter whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever it is. And make sure you join the Camera Shake squad at camerashakepodcast.com so you're the first one to hear about new episodes, giveaways, and behind-the-scenes goodies, because there's a lot of stuff coming out very soon. Make sure you sign up to that. If you'd like to support the show, you can always buy us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/camerashake. It helps us keep bringing these conversations to life. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And as always, I'm your host, Kirsten Nuts, and we'll be back next week with more stories, more inspiration, and more ways to shake up your photography. Until then, take care, keep shooting, and I'll see you next time.